Thanks for joining us today on our TEN Syndicate. We have a number of syndicate investors that look at these deals and are interested to learn more. This is an informal pitch. Each company will take 5 minutes to talk about their deal with or without slides, and then answer questions from each of you as well. We have 3 presenters today. We have Porchlight, we have Sonobex, and we have Everyday Contacts. We're going to kick off with David Narrow of Sonobex and have him talk a little bit about his deal. If you want to ask questions at the end of his 5-minute pitch, you're welcome to ask those questions. Each one will have about 15 minutes. And then if there's any other questions, let us know. Pretty informal. So all you have to do is just unmute and ask your question when we get to that portion of it. David, why don't you go ahead and kick us off there? If you want to share slides, go ahead and share the screen. Let us know if you have any sharing issues there, but I think it should be set up for you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Hall, and thanks everyone for joining. Quick background on me, and then I can dig into the pitch. I am a biomedical engineer turned healthcare strategy consultant turned entrepreneur, and I'm the CEO of Sonobex. So I should be seeing my screen momentarily. At a high level, we're a clinical stage company spun out from Johns Hopkins. The founders include myself, a surgeon and world-renowned medical imaging professor. We've been supported by over $7 million in non-dilutive grants, in addition to the equity we raised. We use artificial intelligence and deep learning to help folks detect problems with AV fistulas for dialysis patients. These technologies have been FDA cleared by the FDA, and we have multiple patents, a high margin consumable in the business model, and a $1.8 billion market for these 2 technologies. We're about 2/3 of the way through our Series A2 preferred financing. This cash gives us the ability to run a large randomized controlled clinical trial, get incremental reimbursement for our customers, and then advance our pipeline product called Echo Guide forward as well. So for those not familiar with the dialysis market, unfortunately, it's a very large and growing market in the United States. Medicare spends $36 billion a year on end-stage renal disease of the $120 billion spent on kidney care. There will be 5 million patients on dialysis in the next few years, and it's growing at a 6% CAGR. Despite the fact that these patients represent just 1% of Medicare beneficiaries, they consume 8% of the budget. So due to these issues, the federal government has come up with a number of attempts to try to reduce the morbidity, mortality, and costs for dialysis patients, but there's a long way to go. The bottom line is if you require dialysis, there needs to be a way to connect your bloodstream to the dialysis machine. Where most patients begin is with what's called a central venous catheter, which is a plastic tube that goes from your neck into your heart. However, this is the worst option for patients due to the high mortality risk and high incidence of bloodstream infections, resulting in expensive hospitalizations. The next best option is an AV graft, which is a synthetic tube connecting a vein to an artery in the arm. Far better than a catheter, but it clots off very frequently and is therefore very expensive to maintain. The best option is called an AV fistula, which is a direct connection between a vein to an artery in the arm. However, before the fistula can be used for dialysis, it has to undergo this natural process called maturation, where basically the vein will expand in size to accommodate the high flow rates needed to administer dialysis. However, while you're waiting for the fistula to mature, you're stuck in your dialysis with that catheter in your neck. As I mentioned, the key issues here are that you have a high risk of bloodstream infections. The mortality risk is 2 to 3 times greater than that of a patient on a fistula. And the incremental cost to the payer, which is primarily CMS here, is about $30,000 per patient or about $160 per day. And the reason it takes so long to get these catheters out is basically, if you look at the numbers, 80% of patients begin their dialysis on a fistula, on a catheter rather. More than 30% of newly created fistulas fail to mature, and the ones that do mature take an average of 6 months to pull that catheter out. And the reason it takes so long is that in order to assess the status of the fistula, to either use it or improve one that's not doing so well, you need to either be a physician or ideally have a ultrasound done by a sonographer. Now, these patients, they go to the dialysis clinic 3 times per week and spend about 4 hours a day there, but you only have minimum wage employees working at the clinics. You don't have physicians and you don't have sonographers available. And because of a number of factors, including the fact that they're spending so much time in the dialysis clinic and that they live tough lives, that they have poor access to transportation, their compliance to actually see their physician or see the sonographer is only 12 to 33%. So that results in a delay in decision-making and therefore a delay in maturation. So we view a really strong opportunity to be able to meet the patient where they are and be able to collect this powerful ultrasound information in the dialysis clinic during routine dialysis sessions. The way that we've been able to do this is with a 2-part technology called EchoMark and EchoSure. EchoMark is basically an implantable bioresorbable polymer that's made with a novel manufacturing technique that shines bright on an ultrasound image. And we have a 3D device called EchoSure, which is an AI and deep learning enabled 3D ultrasound that's meant to be used by a layperson to collect the information needed to assess the status of the fistula. This is what it looks like in clinical use, with the EchoMark implanted underneath the fistula on the left and the technician using the EchoSure on the right when the patient's in the clinic. So with this information, you collect the information about the fistula, compare it to existing protocols and standards about what to do with these patients based off of ultrasound readings, and can take action early to get that catheter out sooner, regardless of what ends up happening to that patient. We completed a large validation study proving the accuracy of the technology compared to the standard of care, which was published in a prominent dialysis journal. And we're gearing up for a large randomized controlled clinical trial that will demonstrate the clinical and economic benefit of the technology, which is primarily funded by a large NIH grant. The business model focuses primarily on the EchoMark device. This is basically what drives the revenue. It's paid for through what's called a pass-through payment. And then there's recurring revenue with the EchoSure side on a lease to the dialysis clinic. The team's exceptionally strong. Happy to go into the details in the Q&A if that's of interest, but just to highlight a few folks. Alex Yavzlin, he's internationally renowned for his contributions in nephrology. He's at University of Michigan and was the co-chair of the KDOQI Guidelines for Vascular Access. And John Rapp, he's our Chief Business Officer. He's been launching new medical devices for the last 25 years, and his most recent company in the dialysis space sold to Medtronic before we hired him. We also have a phenomenal board with serial entrepreneurs and large med tech representatives, and also a phenomenal advisory board of internationally known physicians across the country. The M&A space has been particularly frothy with large 9-figure and some 10-figure acquisitions, leaving really attractive potential returns for investors in this financing. So just to wrap up, we're doing a Series A2 preferred. It's a $5 million financing. We did a first close of $3 million, and this gives us the ability to run this large randomized controlled trial, get incremental payment to our customers, and advance our pipeline product, Echo Guide, to market. So thank you guys for the opportunity. Looking forward to any questions you have.
Great, David. Thank you for that. Does anybody in the room have a question? If you do, you either put it through the chat and I'll read it out, or you can unmute and ask your question directly to David.
Yeah, just a quick question, and I'm certainly not very familiar with the space, so I apologize for the dumb query here. But in terms of initial learnings and testings, when would be that timing between your phases of, would that be a stage B where you actually get to have the clinical trial with a certain number of patients, and what would that number of patients be for determining if it's actually ready for market? And would that, how much capital do you think you'll need before you're at that stage?
Yeah, so that's that 300 patient randomized controlled trial that I mentioned. So that will begin later this year. And with the existing NIH grants that we've been awarded, plus this $5 million financing, that will not only fund that clinical trial, but also fund the business throughout the duration of the study. So the 5 million plus the existing cash on hand will take us through the end of that study, and we'll have a readout of those results.
Got it. So, but then you'll still need capital after that to then manufacture and build a product to get to a certain number of customers, right? So I guess I'm trying to understand just what would that number be for you to actually be able to then deliver products? So
yeah, manufacturing has already been scaled up. We've had products in production for about 2 years now. So the supply chain is already squared away. The reason we're funding the business through the duration of the clinical trial is that we've seen many peer companies have attractive liquidity events at the end of these large studies. So we expect that that is an option. The alternate solution is to raise a $15 million growth financing to build out the commercial team. But really, the majority of that funding is going to go to hiring that sales team. All of the production and logistics associated with facilitating product to customers has already been taken care of.
Yeah, thank you.
David, you want to give more detail about the go-to-market strategy? If you decide to go forward without a liquidity event, what would that look like there?
Sure. So our Chief Business Officer, John Rapp, is leading the sales and marketing efforts, which he's done for 2.5 decades. Basically, the sales process involves sort of a two-pronged strategy. There's the surgeon that implants the EchoMark, and then there's the nephrologist that partners with the large dialysis organizations that are in charge of the EchoSure side of things. So basically, we have each territory split up. There are 20 territories in the country representing anywhere from 4,500 to 7,500 new relevant surgeries per year, with one territory manager and 3 clinical account managers. Basically, the territory manager is focused on getting a handful of new surgeons up and running that really dominate that local market, and then ensuring that the local dialysis organization, basically they're managed at a regional level, are bought into the use of the EchoSure machine. So both getting that lease done at the dialysis clinic, but then also getting the Echo Mark through the hospital value analysis committee and then inserted into these patients. And basically the linchpin between those two processes is the nephrologist that has really ownership of that patient, that influences both where the patient goes for their surgery and then also what happens in that dialysis clinic. So the nephrologists are really the key champions for the technology across both of those different channels.
Great. Can you talk about the intellectual property that's behind it?
Yeah, so we have 3 patents. The core patent that it protects the process of using an implantable fiducial marker with ultrasound to measure blood flow information has been issued, and we have protection in 5 geographies. We also have a patent that protects the novel manufacturing technique that we invented to make a bioresorbable material shine bright in an ultrasound image to facilitate the use of our EchoSure platform. And then we have another methods patent. So there are 3 total patents that protect various facets of the technology.
Great. Any other questions from the room here? My final question is, what are the multiples or the comps for exits in this space? What have you been seeing so far?
Yeah, the 3 most recent comps have exited for 225 million, 500 million upfront with 400 in earnouts, and 1.1 billion in the last 3 years, ranging from late clinical to early commercial stage companies. So, you know, the pre-money on this round is a $30 million price. So the potential return profile is very attractive.
Great. Any other questions before we wrap up on this one? Any closing words there, David? Anything we should know before you go to the next one?
I think we're all set. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thanks, David. Next up, we have Lawrence Chavez of Everyday Contacts. Lawrence, can you give us a rundown of Everyday Contacts?
Sure. Thank you, Hall. I'm going to put up a quick presentation. I'll go through it quite quickly. All right. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here. Just a quick rundown of what we're working on. So Everyday Contacts is introducing a new daily disposable contact lens through a novel hybrid direct consumer model. So the problem that we're solving is specifically for the eye doctors, in that they lose approximately $500 million a year in revenue to people walking from their practice with their prescription and buying from other retail channels. So this is a significant problem, and it's primarily based upon price and convenience. So the solution that we've done is we've created a novel hybrid direct consumer model that gives the patients all the things they like about a direct consumer product. A premium quality lens is affordable. It's available from an eye doctor they trust. And for the eye doctor, we give them an opportunity to recapture that lost revenue and also give them co-branding on all of our packaging that goes out to the consumers. Our go-to-market strategy is quite simple. We're looking at 3 different channels, although one of them seems to be an early forerunner for the best one. One is through independent eye care practitioners. The other one is working with consultants and doctors associations who partner with independent eye doctors. And the one that's been seems to be bearing the most fruit is the practices that have been acquired by private equity. And to be clear, what I mean is there's a roll-up strategy in the eye care space where independent practices are being acquired by private equity firms. And in this case, these private equity firms are looking to grow the bottom line of the business and make each patient more valuable. As you guys being investors, you know exactly what private equity investors are looking for. And what we're offering the doctor or the practice is the exact same thing the private equity companies are looking for. Essentially, we're able to make a patient that would normally be worth $120 in eye exam services and make them worth $270 by providing them a contact lens subscription and the margin that they've realized from that. So our traction to date, we have over 30 practices that have signed up. We haven't onboarded all of these practices. We're in the process of doing that now. Each of these practices have 2 to 6 doctors, and we're working on the ability to help the doctors proactively identify which patients are going to walk, and that's primarily driven by the demographics of the patients. So as I mentioned, this is a new model. So essentially, it is a contact lens that works on the assumption that there's something fundamentally different about contact lenses that's fundamentally different from all other direct consumer products. And that being is that the doctor is the linchpin. They're the recommender of the product. According to CooperVision study, 94% of patients rely on their doctor to choose which lens to purchase. Actually, our study shows that that's higher. So essentially, the doctor's making the purchase decision on what to buy, but they typically lose the patients on the where to buy it. So we help them solve that problem by giving the consumer a consumer-friendly product that's available from their doctor. Our model is very scalable. It's basically the combination of a subscription model combined with a partnership strategy. So we're not selling to the individual patient, we're selling through the doctor and leveraging their networks. And so what this means is within 3 years, by getting 600 doctors partnered with us, we can get in excess of $51 million in annual recurring revenue out of that. We have an amazing team. I won't go into detail on most of these folks, just a few key points. Jim Day is our Chief Revenue Officer, who's with Hoya for 20 years, has a partnership background, and has a number of relationships with the key players in this as it relates to our partnership strategy. And then our medical advisory board is just a world-class medical advisory board, a number of thought leaders and very well-known doctors. With that, that's our quick pitch. We think we've created a better way by rethinking how contact lenses are distributed within the new world of direct consumer marketing.
Great. Thanks, Lawrence. Can you talk about the rollout of the product and how that's going?
So we just started we just rolled out the launch. So we did what we call our Canary Go Live. We rolled out with 4 practices. In part because one of the things we don't emphasize in the pitch is we have a e-commerce platform that facilitates all of this. So it connects to the doctors, it connects to the patients, and it connects to everyday contacts. So we started with those 4 practices. We've learned a couple things, a couple of the objections. We learned what worked, some of the things that worked. And now we're starting to roll out the balance of those 30 practices that we mentioned there. So we brought on New Mexico Eye Associates, which is a regional firm here in New Mexico. We're bringing on some New York practices over the next week or 2. So we're starting to roll that out. And the New York practices are the private equity firms that we talked about before, where we have that value proposition that matches well with them.
So why focus on the doctor in this case? Why not just go direct on Amazon? What's the advantage of a doctor in this position?
Well, there's 2 advantages and one reason you don't want to go the other route. So the 2 advantages are that's the way the value chain works. I don't know who in here wears contacts, but the doctor's making the purchase decision on why to use the lens. The doctor's already making that recommendation. In fact, when we do our customer survey and we ask patients what lens you wear, most patients don't even have the familiarity with what lens they're wearing. They're unaware of it because they've relied on the doctor. The other is a legal reason. You need a prescription for a contact lens in the United States. And so within that, there was a company that tried to do a pure direct consumer model. They were fined $3.5 million by the FTC earlier this year for illegal contact lens substitutions. So you really can't do it in a legal way in the United States because of that. But the reality is, direct consumer, and Hall, I mentioned that we were writing up a position paper on this. We just finished it. I'll share it with you and anybody else. You have to pay the piper at some point in time. So direct consumer companies typically will pay 30–40% of their revenue on advertising because they cut out the distributor. They have to attract those customers some way, shape, or form. And they do that by paying exorbitant, usually social marketing fees. And so essentially, we recognize that we have a person still in that value chain, that being the doctor, but we're paying them 25% as basically the net margin for that product. So rather than paying Facebook 30% of advertising of our net revenue for advertising, we're going to pay the doctor 25% as a reseller of that product. And I know we get lots of questions about this. Doctors resell product all the time, so it's perfectly within the existing system. And so we have chosen that strategy because it works within the existing value chain, and we're not at the mercy of the ebbs and flows of the advertising cost on social media.
What is the role of pulling the doctors together? How's that going? And what's the cost to sign up a doctor or doctor group to join your program?
So as I mentioned, one of the things we've been working on is a partnership strategy. So we're doing essentially a drip campaign for general awareness right now. We have a email list of 8,000 doctors. But the real strategy to get awareness is we're working through partnerships. So Healthy Eyes Advantage is basically a doctor network where they provide a buying group and other services. They have 10,000 doctors within their network. We're working with them. They've agreed to commit 10 doctors for launch, and then we'll roll on additional doctors. We mentioned we have one private equity group. That is a practice of 30 offices that we're working with. We have a meeting this Thursday with the largest private equity group that has 600 practices. So we're working on these practice strategies or partnership strategies to get groups of doctors at the 10s, 20s, 30s, and more, because we believe that's going to be the most effective strategy rather than going off to the independent eye doctor on one-off, trying to sign them up on one-off strategies. That's very expensive to do.
Great. And how much is your raise and how much is left in the round?
Well, so Hall, we have not launched our raise yet. So we are preparing to launch our convertible note. We've pushed it off a little bit so we can get a little more results from our launch. We believe that our convertible note round will be a 500, 750K round, which will lead into our Series A round later on this year. But we'll probably launch that next month. And so we would love to share that with any of the investors on the call and keep you guys updated as we get to that point.
Great. Any questions from the audience before we go to the next one?
What's the cap on that raise, the convertible note?
So at this point in time, we do not have a formal raise, but the preliminary,
contemplated, what do you think?
The contemplated, it's a 20% discount, 10 million cap.
Great, thank you.
And the post, just to give you a reference, the post of our last raise was 6.5.
Great, thanks.
Okay, Lawrence, thank you so much for that. Let's now move to Porchlight. Let's go ahead and hear from Steve Petersmith about your deal there at Porchlight.
All right, can you see me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, my name is Steve Petersmith. I'm the CEO and founder of Porchlight Health. Porchlight Health is a company that's going to solve the underlying communication problem in the senior health industry. We do this by bringing health home. So right now, the biggest problem, one of the biggest problems in healthcare is associated with the Medicare spending and the track that it's on. It's unsustainable because seniors struggle with digital health. AARP tells us that the 38 million older adults struggle with engagement. That engagement has consequences. If they're not able to engage digitally, virtually, then we're leaving that opportunity on the table, and we're stuck in the traditional way of providing healthcare, which is in person and reactive. The net of that is, as the fastest growing population in the United States, which is those over 65, also have the highest cost of spending on healthcare of anybody in the United States, 3 to 5 times more expensive than any senior, or excuse me, than any other working age adult. It creates a cost curve that is unsustainable in the industry. This will be resolved by the payers requiring providers to provide services at lower cost. There's not a pill, there's not a process, there's not a procedure that is going to drive that cost down. Costs have to be moved to lower cost settings, which is the home. Costs have to be deferred to other services like community-based organizations and families. And so when we look at the path forward. The root cause is obviously that seniors struggle to adopt and engage with technology. There's a third that can manage complex technologies on some level. And if anybody's ever tried to support an older adult learning how to use technology, a smartphone, an iPad, if you've ever tried to support them remotely, you'll understand that they're not set up to manage multiple communication channels. There are some that can do that, but we call those the unicorns because they're few and far between. The reality is that most seniors, 2/3, 38 million, are disconnected in some way in their ability to advocate for themselves, which helps drive down the cost of healthcare. All right, so the impacts of that go way beyond just the seniors in their home. Families are impacted, community-based organizations go underutilized, healthcare providers are unable to leverage technology to really drive new costs. And then at the end of the day, it's the payers that are the ones that are stuck reacting to the system that exists today. The solution to all this is that we have to bring everybody onto one platform. That means that we have to solve the underlying communication problems that seniors have, the barriers that prevent them from digitally connecting. And then we have to break down the silos of communication and engagement with the resources that have a role to play in seniors' health at home. So when we look at that, it's all about creating a modern platform. But seniors aren't your average consumer of technology. So in order for us to even make this work, we have to support them in their home. And this is about in-person services that help understand technology and help people use it. This is about providing technology that allows them the access. And also, it's things like devices, access to high-speed internet, and the ability to leverage those and use them without having to manage them. But when you do this and you create the right kind of a platform, like what Porchlight does is we start by doing something people want to do every day, which is connect with their family and friends. Now, there's a social component here that drives an everyday behavior, and it's that everyday behavior that we're able to leverage on our platform because it generates data that allows us to start understanding the needs and the behaviors of our users. And then we can leverage that artificial intelligence to start gaining the efficiencies in the marketplace with the providers, either community-based services or healthcare. And so the whole concept here is that if you address the communication needs, you create adoption and engagement, then you can start to create a completely different path forward to support the care and cost crisis for senior health. There's a big marketplace, obviously, when you're talking about one of the largest, fastest growing sectors, Medicare spending. And we consider our obtainable market here as, those folks that are in post-acute care today and, being first to market with a platform or one of the first 2 companies to market with a platform like this, then we feel like there's large market share to be had. Our business model is it's subscription. We sell business to business because we create a network. What we do is we make money by selling access to that network and solutions to post-acute care providers. That's our market entry point. There's some really specifics about that we can go into more detail on if I've got some time, but our focus is really on the top 40 home care and hospice. This represents like $10 billion in potential revenue. But again, there's some specific reasons we're choosing that one. And our growth strategy is all about landing and expanding. And like I mentioned, there's some real uniquenesses to this industry. I'll touch on these really quick but move kind of fast. Top 40 companies represent the most large part of the market. The land strategy here is securing these relationships, but the expand is all about how do you grow. And what that really means is when you're talking about a home care or a hospice agency, Encompass is one that we're working with right now, or we're in talks with, $1.6 billion publicly traded company, but they're really made up of 250 small offices across 40 different states. And so the idea is that, there's an operational component to getting that revenue. This is our pipeline right now. We're a Series seed company. I'll get to that here in just a sec, with a growing pipeline. And then again, that pipeline has a large ARR opportunity because of the way these companies will be monetized. Key KPIs here, it's really all about adoption and engagement and retention. And whereas a traditional telehealth company who's an ad hoc service will have a couple interactions a month, because we're involved in their daily lives, we have multiple interactions a day. And our seniors average over 100. And just think about this as a new attention economy. If we have 100 interactions with the senior in their home, that means that we have their eyeballs, and it gives us the opportunity to understand how they're doing in a HIPAA compliant private network. We're growing good and up and to the right. Again, we're small. Both my co-founder and I, although we're both bald and have a graying goatee and glasses, we both have a lot of experience in the in-home senior healthcare space. He built an EMR, electronic medical record company, and I built and sold a in-home healthcare company. We have a great group of advisors in each of the niches, and we're looking to even bring 2 of these folks on board with our next round. And now that for the investment, we're looking at a second seed round. We're doing this in a phased approach. Our first 2 phases had to do with how do we make sure we understand the needs of seniors in their homes, and how do we make sure that we understand and deliver on the user experience required to be the foundation of the company. Now we're moving into our second seed, which is onboarding and leveraging the post-acute healthcare providers. Again, this is a space I know well, so I feel really comfortable moving into this. We're looking for a $2 million raise on a convertible note. That gives us 9 months of runway, allowing us to get our first $1 million in ARR and what we're calling $20 million in signed business. Again, that sort of goes back to the original model of Flight We Sign and Encompass, that $60 million of revenue that we can't recognize right away. This is one of many rounds, though. We figure once we get to the first $1 million of revenue spread across a few strategic customers over the next 9 to 12 months, that sets up a Series A round where, again, money just makes this go faster because we've built out and proven the model. Money's used for, like I said, on this onboarding process, which is where we recognize the revenue that we generate, customer success, which is, again, at the heart of what we do, those interactions and the retention. And then it's really about scaling our product pipeline and some of the key parts of our team. The projections right now, this is a very profitable opportunity. So we'll actually be profitable within the next 18 months on the path that we're on. We're just this Series seed, and then the first part of the Series A is actually just building up the infrastructure required to start leveraging the gains that we get through scale, through building out those and operationalizing and onboarding those new customers. And that's all I've got. Any questions from there? I know I ran through that awfully fast.
My question, Steve, is where are you entering the market first? And then from there, how do you plan to scale out either geographically or logically?
Yeah, so we're entering the market right now in the home care and hospice space. And again, like this is an industry I know well because that was my first startup and exit. We've got a couple key folks right now, top 10 home care and hospice agencies that we're working with. We've got a few small regional players we're working with as well. And what's going to end up happening with the home care and hospice is that we sign a customer, and then we will start one city or region, and then we'll build out through their offices one office at a time through that region, and then you expand region to region. So our model is set up to deliver against that, and it really depends on which of these customers we sign first, and where they want to start that ball rolling.
What is the unique capability of the platform? What do you get from that other competitors don't have?
Yeah, that's a great question. The core of the platform is really about generating a new data set and new analytics that don't exist in the marketplace today. So where remote patient monitoring gives you what somebody's blood pressure is and what somebody's weight might be, history has proven that those are more diet type activities where somebody will do them consistently for a week or two, and then the newness wears off and they stop doing it. Because we're engaged with somebody we're connecting families with older adults. We're able to ask very specific questions about how they're doing and why, understand what their goals are, understand what their physical challenges are. And within that daily check-in process, we're asking them leading questions that help us understand how they're doing, and then what behaviors we help create that start to solve those problems or don't solve those problems. And so what we patented, or we're in the process of patenting our first two algorithms that dissect that data and then kick off basically care pathways that engage family and healthcare services to meet those needs in real time in the home. And what's awesome about that is, traditionally a senior would have to fail, understand that they failed or failing, and then they start the call for an ambulance, go to the emergency room, go into a hospital. And we've seen through our data that we can start to see a trend in like medication management, instability in ambulating, and we can get resources into the home before there's a crisis.
Great. And what's the vision of monetizing the data that you're collecting? How do you see it being used, and where do you think it might go?
The biggest way that we monetize the data today is our ability to bring, or its ability to help bring other healthcare providers into our network, because we give them a set of data that they don't have. Every healthcare company, whether you're a provider of traditional medicine or services, or even some of the new and emerging technologies, what they need is an understanding of how somebody's doing in their home, not in the hospital, but in their home where they don't have somebody watching them. And so our data right now is going to be used to help identify what those needs are. And then that gives us information and statistics to be able to go out to other companies beyond post-acute care, like Medicare Advantage companies that really want to understand and are financially incented to keep people at home. But it gives us that data to go to them and say, hey, we have a need, or we can show you that there's a need for your product or your service, or give you cost controls in the home. And the more data that we build up, we've already got 2 years of data working with seniors in the home today. And that's what's driving our first patentable algorithms that drive the behaviors. And the larger we get, the more data we get, the more valuable that becomes in our ability to prove that, if a new healthcare provider joins our network, that we can efficiently, tap them on the shoulder, let them know that they're needed. And also, the inverse of that is true, that they can have confidence in us to know that their patient or their client is not going to decline or is less likely to have a crisis because we're monitoring them.
Great. I think that brings us to the conclusion of our session today. Appreciate everyone joining us. If you have any questions, let us know. We can connect you with the startups afterwards, and appreciate your taking time to join us today. We'll be here again next month with another group from our Syndicate platform to share with you guys, and happy to answer any questions you have with them. Feel free to reach out to us at TEN Capital, and we'll be glad to connect with these guys directly. With that, we'll go ahead and close it out. But I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to thank our presenters, Steve, Lawrence, and David, for your presentations. It was a great job. Thought it looked really good. Thank you guys for the questions, and looking forward to seeing you guys next time.